Hello, this is Ruth Meed, and I am a former professor of special education, and I taught for a total of over 27 years in several different environments. And I am recording a series of videos related to behavior and helping kids with different behavior and charts and graphs that you can use to help kids track what they're doing. When I was teaching in the middle school in Greenville County, I was trying to teach my students how to make some kind of a connection between fractions, decimal, and percent, and how these things worked in a real life setting. So what I did was I devised this little daily prep check sheet to work with my students. And I have the key down at the bottom of this, but I'm going to go ahead and explain it as I go. So you can probably see my little arrow thing here working. So I had kids who really needed some help with knowing how to manage their time and their resources and be on time for class. And so you're talking about your basic ADD, ADHD, just no ability to organize their things. And I'm dealing with math as well, so I thought I'd put the two together and see if I couldn't come up with a behavior management slash personal executive functioning management thing that would work for them. So I created this sheet. So what this means here, the PP is your pencil and paper. Did you bring your pencil and paper to class? And then your binder. Do you have your notes and anything that you need related to this particular class and what you're doing? And with each one of the classes, they would write in the name of the class. So if this was math, they would put math here, and then English, and then social studies, and then farther down here, science, depending on whatever class they were in. So they write their class in, and they would just track how they did for a week and what their success was, or not lack of success. Then their planner. Do they have their agenda? When I was working in those schools, they were required to have some kind of a calendar or agenda that they wrote all of their assignments in and kept track of whether they had them done or whether or not they had more things due. So at the beginning of every day, they would walk in, they would look at my board, they would see what they had for homework, and they would need to write that down and be ready to go. That was just a routine that we had in our classroom every day. Then the next one was their classwork. Did they actually work during class time? Did they accomplish the tasks that needed to be done during class? Did they stay on task? And you can make these things more user-friendly to specific students if you have something that you want them to do that's more specific to that child. Like, do they pay attention? Do they stay in their desk? Those kinds of things. You can change these that way. But for now, I did they get the classwork done? Then the next one is homework. Did they have the homework done that was due, and did they have it out ready to go for being checked at the beginning of class? And then the last one was behavior. And depending on the student, I had some students who needed more help with certain behaviors than other students, and some who didn't have an issue with the behavior. So I put behavior here, but each individual student would know if they had a separate behavior contract for some kind of behavior that they were struggling with. So then they would check in this box. So they might say they had their paper, they might have their binder, they forgot their planner, but once they realized they got into class, they did their classwork, and then they didn't have their homework, and then they really had fairly decent behavior. So then what would happen is they would get 4 out of 6. That's the fraction of what was happening. Then how do you convert that to a decimal? Now I would actually teach them how to convert that to a decimal. I didn't realize I had that set to show up a date instead of a, let's see if I can fix that real quick. Well, they're all set to date, aren't they? Like this. So they would put their fraction there, 4 out of 6, and then they would come and they would do, I'm just going to have to take this out of here till I get this fixed. While you're finding out how to do something with a Word document. Number the numbers I want as fractions. And this one is just up to 1 digit. There we go. Okay, so now that should be 4 out of 6, which ends up immediately converting to 2/3, which is interesting because my students were learning how to work with fractions that way. So then we would find out what the decimal was, and of course in this case it would be 0.67, and then percent would be 67%. So then they would learn how those numbers worked with each other. I had a lot of the students who just did not understand how fractions went to decimals and then went to percent. So as we worked on this, the first week it took a little bit for them to figure out what was happening and getting used to it. But by the end of that first week, they started to actually understand what was happening with it. And then the second week, they were learning a little bit more about the fraction because they had done it several times. They were starting to get more understanding of what was actually transpiring when they did the fraction to the decimal of percent. And I took the time to show them how to divide the 2 by 3 with their calculators. And it would show up with that decimal, and then the percentage would be times 100. So I showed them that math concept as we were working our way through this. And I found this was actually successful with some of the kids. They started to understand the correlation between fractions, decimals, and percent because they were working with it continuously. And I did this for about a month, and then I dropped it and we went to other things. But for that month, because they were seeing it every single day, over a period of time, they started to really gain a grasp of the concept of how fractions related to decimals, which related to percent. And it gave them a concrete way to grasp that. Now what I've done is I've put these down at the bottom so that when you're working with your students, you can actually show them what those different things mean, and that's a reminder for them. And then I did put the percentages in here, but if you're working with your students, I would suggest that you, before you show them the second page, because this first part will print on one page, the second part would show on a second page. Before you show them that second page, actually take the time to work with the calculator and show them how 1 divided by 6 gives you 0.17, which is 17% when you multiply by 100. So those are just some quickies, super quickies on one way that you might be able to help your student grasp this concept of keeping track of their stuff, but also gaining a math skill at the same time. I hope you found this beneficial, and if you like it, go ahead and click like and share on the comments below. And I am going to put the link for this particular chart where you can go and actually get this chart if you want to print it off. That will be down below as well. And I hope this is beneficial to you, and I hope you have a blessed day.